The scent of roasted espresso drifted through the air, mingling with the quiet hum of conversation and the clinking of crystal glasses. The café wasn't just any café. It was Manhattan's crown jewel, the kind of place where hedge fund managers closed deals over single-origin brews and socialites snapped photos to prove they belonged. Emily Carter didn't belong, not really. At 24, she wore the uniform, a crisp white blouse and a black apron, but her shoes were scuffed, her hair hastily tied back, and her paycheck already spoken for before she even earned it. Every shift meant survival. Rent, groceries, her brother's medication. She moved quickly between tables, balancing a tray of cappuccinos topped with perfect swirls of foam. Her heart thudded with that familiar anxiety, always afraid of dropping something, of slipping, of being noticed for the wrong reasons. She wanted invisibility. Invisibility was safe. But today, fate had no interest in keeping her invisible. At table 7 sat Daniel Blackwell, billionaire, tech mogul, the man whose decisions shifted global markets. His tailored white shirt gleamed under the cafe's soft lighting, his cufflinks catching the gold glow of the chandeliers. His jawline was sharp, his eyes cold steel. People didn't look at him. They glanced, swallowed their R, and looked away. And sitting beside him, Victoria Hayes, heiress, model, and socialite. She dripped money from every pore, her diamond earrings winking like cruel stars. Her lips curled in boredom as she scrolled on her phone, not sparing the waitress weaving through the room a single glance. Emily's tray wobbled as she neared their table. She tightened her grip, 1 step, 2 steps. Then disaster. A banker rushing behind her bumped her elbow. The tray tilted. Time seemed to slow. A cappuccino cup slid, teetered, and tipped. Hot coffee cascaded down Daniel Blackwell's pristine white shirt. Gasps erupted around the cafe. Forks froze in midair. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The silence was deafening, heavier than the sound of the cup shattering on the marble floor. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her tray rattled in her trembling hands. "I am so sorry, sir," she stammered, reaching for napkins, her cheeks burning crimson. Victoria's laughter sliced through the silence. "You can't even carry a tray. Pathetic." Her voice rang, sharp and cruel. She leaned closer to Daniel, her manicured hand brushing his arm. "Throw her out." Emily's stomach dropped. Her job, her brother's hospital bills, everything depended on this. She bent down, frantically blotting his shirt with napkins. "Please, let me clean it, Daniel's hand shot out, halting her. His eyes, piercing gray, locked onto hers. For a moment, Emily couldn't breathe. She expected rage, fury, humiliation, but his gaze was unreadable. Cold, yes, but searching, as though he was looking for something hidden behind her wide, terrified eyes. The cafe manager, Jack, rushed over, pale with panic. "Mr. Blackwell, I sincerely apologize. Emily, step back right now." Emily obeyed, her hands shaking, the napkin crumpled in her fist. Victoria's lips curled into a smirk. "Darling, you should sue her. That shirt costs more than her entire year's salary." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to cry, to disappear, but she held herself still. Losing control would mean losing everything. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low, smooth, but carrying a weight that silenced the room. "It's fine." The words hung heavy, shocking everyone, including Victoria. She blinked. "Fine, Daniel, look at you." He glanced at his ruined shirt, then back at Emily. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if cataloging her fear, her clenched jaw, the way she refused to beg. Jack fumbled. Emily apologized immediately. "I already did," Emily whispered, her voice cracking but steady. The billionaire tilted his head, studying her with unsettling intensity. He wasn't angry. Not yet, he was curious. Victoria scoffed, curious about what? She's a nobody, invisible. But Daniel's gaze didn't move. Emily felt her pulse thunder in her ears. She wanted to shout that she wasn't invisible, that she was more than a clumsy waitress drowning in debt, but her lips pressed shut. Pride held her in place. Finally, Daniel leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. He dismissed her with a single word. Chair, expression unreadable. He dismissed her with a single word. Go. Emily's knees nearly buckled, but she nodded, turned, and walked back toward the counter. The room still buzzed with shocked whispers. She wanted to vanish into the shadows again, but deep down she knew something had shifted. As she disappeared behind the counter, Daniel's eyes lingered on her retreating figure. And for the first time in years, the man who built an empire on numbers and algorithms felt something uncalculated. Not anger, not annoyance, but the faintest spark of curiosity. Victoria London hissing, "Why did you destroy her? She humiliated you." Daniel said nothing. He stared at the dark stain spreading across his shirt, fingers brushing the damp fabric. His mind wasn't on the coffee, it was on the girl who didn't beg. The girl who dared to look him in the eye. The cafe's bathroom mirror was cruel under fluorescent light. Emily dabbed at the coffee splashes still clinging to her sleeves, her fingers trembling hard enough to blur her reflection. She could hear the murmur of customers outside, the low throb of music, the clatter of porcelain, life continuing as if she hadn't just poured a cappuccino onto the most powerful man in the room. Her phone buzzed in her apron. She jerked, fumbled, and answered on instinct. "Hello." "Miss Carter," the voice was professional, gentle, practiced. "This is Brenda from St. Luke's. It's about your brother." All the air left Emily's lungs. "Is he okay?" "He had an episode last night, shortness of breath, chest pain. He's stabilized, but the cardiologist wants to move up the procedure. Insurance authorization is still pending, and there's an outstanding balance." "How much?" Emily whispered, bracing herself. A brief pause, soft keystrokes. $947 to clear the hold. The procedure deposit is separate. Emily pressed her knuckles against the sink to stop the shaking. $947 might as well have been $9 million. I can bring something today." "I understand," Brenda said, voice kind in a way that made it worse. "But until the hold is cleared, they can't schedule. I'm sorry." The call clicked off. Emily stared at herself, at the tired eyes and the pale, determined mouth, and forced her breathing back into a rhythm. She tucked the phone away, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the storm. Jack was waiting by the espresso machine, jaw set, wiping the same spotless counter with furious circles. "Office, now." She followed him through the tight hallway to the cramped manager's office, two filing cabinets, a slumping ficus, a bulletin board full of schedules and warnings that might as well have been tombstones. Jack shut the door with a soft, ominous click. He didn't sit. What happened at 7? "A banker clipped my elbow. I'm sorry." "You're sorry?" His laugh came out brittle. "Do you know who that was? Blackwell, as in Blackwell Capital, as in the man who could buy this block with the coins in his ashtray." "I apologized," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "He said it was fine." Jack scrubbed a hand over his face. "He may not sue, he might. Either way, the optics are bad." Victoria Hayes was with him. Emily's stomach tightened. "I know." Jack pulled a form from a drawer and set it between them. "I have to write you up for negligence. 2 more and you're out. Honestly, HR is telling me to consider termination now. He crawled up Emily's neck. Jack, please. I can't lose this job. His eyes softened. I know I do. You're one of my best, but this place runs on perception. Rich people want flawless. They don't want to remember humans carry the plates. She swallowed. Dock my hours, dock my tips, just don't fire me. Silence stretched. Jack slid the write-up back halfway. I'll put you on last warning. One misstep and I can't save you. He hesitated, then added quietly, if you need to leave early today, I can cover the last hour. No, Emily said too fast. I need every minute. They returned to the floor. Eyes tracked her as she threaded through the tables, the hushed, hungry gaze of people who loved a small, contained catastrophe. She kept her posture straight, her tray steady, her expression neutral. She refilled water like a metronome. She delivered pastries with the care of a surgeon. She smiled until her cheeks hurt. Her phone buzzed again, a text from her landlord, rent late, fee added, last grace day. She tucked the phone away, felt the burn of tears, strangled them down. At 2 o'clock the lunch rush thinned, the door chimed. A woman in a slate-gray suit entered, sharp bob, leather portfolio, purposeful stride, not a customer. She scanned the room, found Emily, and came straight to her. Emily Carter. Yes, Emily said, suddenly aware of how small her own name sounded. The woman offered a crisp card, Ava Lynn's special assistant, Blackwell Group. Mr. Blackwell asked me to deliver this. Ava handed over a garment bag, black, sleek, surprisingly heavy, and a tidy white envelope. Emily blinked. I don't understand. Inside the envelope is an address and time. Inside the bag is a replacement shirt for your uniform. Ava's tone was courteous but final. Mr. Blackwell requests a brief conversation today. Emily's pulse spiked. He wants to talk to me. Eva held her gaze. 6 p.m. Blackwell Tower, 49th floor. Security will have your name. She checked her watch. You should bring identification. Jack hovered a few feet away, trying not to look like he was staring. Emily glanced from the card to Ava. Is this about the shirt? I imagine it's about more than that, Ava said. She softened just a fraction. He rarely requests anything personally. With that, she was gone. No coffee, no pastry, just a breeze of cologne and authority left in her wake. Jack sidled up. What was that? Emily showed him the card. Jack let out a low whistle. You're either going to be promoted to Empress of Cappuccinos or vaporized with a glance. She tried to smile. I'm voting for not vaporized. The rest of her shift crawled and sprinted all at once. She spilled nothing. She broke nothing. She became the ghost she wanted to be, present, efficient, unseen. But the envelope in her apron felt like a brick. Every time her phone vibrated, her bones vibrated with it. At 4:30, she ducked into the bathroom and opened the envelope, a single sheet of paper. 6:00 p.m. Blackwell Tower. Use the executive entrance. Ask for Ava. At the bottom, a different card, sleek black with raised silver numbers, a credit card. No, a one-time security pass with a metallic sheen. She stared at her reflection. Don't be stupid, she whispered. Don't say something you can't take back. The landlord's text, the hospital's call, the write-up form, $947. She folded the paper, slipped it back into the envelope, and emerged to close her section. Wipe, reset, align, breathe. At 5, she clocked out and grabbed the garment bag. In the staff hallway, she unzipped it, expecting a simple white blouse. It was the same blouse, same brand, same cut, but new. Next to it, pinned with a tiny silver clip, a small note written in tight, clean handwriting. Accidents happen, standards matter, DB. It shouldn't have rattled her, it did. The note was both a reprimand and something else. Not kindness, not exactly attention. Kindness, not exactly attention. A sign from a distant planet that somehow saw her through a telescope. Outside, evening fell in sheets of light and shadow between skyscrapers. The city exhaled. Emily took the subway, swaying among commuters, clutching the garment bag like a lifeline. Ads for fintech apps and luxury condos slid by in bright panels. She tried to imagine what the 49th floor looked like. Maybe it was made of glass and air. Maybe people floated instead of walked. At 53rd and Lexington, she surfaced into a canyon of steel. Blackwell Tower rose from the sidewalk like a blade, angled, mirrored, mercilessly tall. The revolving door spun quietly, swallowing people in designer coats and spitting them into the lobby's marble gleam. Emily paused just inside the entrance, her sneakers squeaking. Security eyed her, then their screen. One of them nodded. "Miss Carter, executive elevator is straight ahead. Evelyn will meet you at the top." Her throat went dry. "Thank you." She stepped into the private elevator. The doors whispered shut. For a breathless moment, the mirrored walls trapped her, her scuffed shoes, her careful blouse, the faint ring of coffee on her sleeve she couldn't quite scrub away. She smoothed her hair, tucked a stray strand behind her ear, and looked herself in the eye. "Don't beg," she murmured. "Be clear, be honest, breathe." The elevator hummed, numbers strobed upward. 12, 24, 33, 41. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Brenda at St. Luke's. "Doctor says Ethan is stable tonight. Call when you can." Relief washed through her, dizzying and fragile. The elevator pinged 49. The doors opened onto a hush so deep it felt like church glass walls, a skyline spread like a map of possibility, and a reception desk carved from a single slab of dark stone. Ava stood there, immaculate, a small smile already in place. "Right on time," she said. "He's waiting." Emily swallowed hard. Somewhere beyond those glass doors, the man whose shirt she ruined sat ready to decide her future with a few calm words. Her job, her brother's surgery, her entire life balanced on the thin edge of a conversation. Alva gestured toward a corridor where the city glowed like a distant galaxy. "After you." Emily took one step, then two. Whatever happened next, there would be no invisibility. Not tonight. The office was less of a room and more of a world. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, the Hudson River glinting like molten silver in the fading sun. The carpet was thick enough to swallow footsteps, and the walls were lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Emily's entire apartment building. At the center, behind a desk of black glass, sat Daniel Blackwell. No tie, jacket draped carelessly over a leather chair. His shirt, the replacement, not the one she'd stained, was crisp again, but he hadn't buttoned the collar. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a man who had stepped out of a storm and hadn't decided whether he enjoyed the rain. Emily hovered at the doorway, clutching her garment bag. Her palms were damp, her throat tight. Daniel looked up slowly, as though he'd already known she was there. "Miss Carter." Her voice cracked on the first syllable. "Mr. Blackwell, I am sorry about the other day." He raised a hand. "Enough, we've established that you're sorry." His tone was calm, but it left no room for protest. He studied her like a problem waiting to be solved. "Sit." Emily crossed the room, every step muffled by the carpet, and lowered herself into the chair opposite his desk. Her knees pressed together, hands clenched in her lap. Daniel leaned back. "You didn't beg." The words hung between them, stark and unsettling. Emily frowned. "Excuse me." "At the cafe," he said evenly. "Most people, when they ruin a $3,000 shirt in front of an audience, beg for forgiveness for their job, for their dignity." His eyes narrowed. "You didn't." She swallowed. "I didn't think it would matter." "It matters," Daniel replied, his gaze sharpened. "It says something about who you are." Emily's heart raced. Was this a trap, a test? She forced herself to meet his eyes. "With respect, Mr. Blackwell, I didn't think you'd want me on my knees. That's not dignity. That's desperation." For a fleeting second, the corner of his mouth twitched as if the ghost of a smile had tried to surface and failed. He tapped a pen against the desk. "You're bold for someone with everything to lose." Emily bit her tongue. She wanted to tell him about Ethan, about the bills stacked like bricks against her chest, about the call from the hospital. But he didn't. He was still a stranger, a dangerous one. Daniel set the pen down. "Tell me something, Miss Carter. Do you like your job?" The question threw her. It's a job. Not an answer. She straightened. "I like paying rent. I like keeping the lights on. I like knowing my brother can eat because I worked a double shift. That's what I like." Silence. The city glowed behind him, 1,000 points of light flickering across glass towers. Daniel regarded her, unreadable, as if measuring her words against some invisible scale. Finally, he leaned forward, elbows in the desk. "I'm running a project, a temporary initiative tied to my foundation. It requires someone adaptable, someone who can follow instructions without collapsing under pressure." Emily blinked. "Are you offering me a job?" His tone didn't change. "I'm offering you an opportunity. 3 weeks, double what you make in a month, possibly more if you're competent." Her pulse surged. 3 weeks of work could cover Ethan's deposit, could pay the rent, could save them, but nothing about this made sense. "Why me?" "You didn't beg," he said again, as if that explained everything. "And you looked me in the eye." Emily shook her head. "That's it. I didn't grovel, so now you want me in your whatever this is." Daniel's eyes darkened. "Careful, Miss Carter. This isn't a game. I don't waste time on people without purpose. I saw something. Whether it's real or not, we'll find out." Her hands gripped the chair's armrests. "And if I say no?" "Then you'll go back to serving coffee and waiting for the next accident to ruin your chances." He tilted his head. "But you won't say no." Emily bristled. "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're here," Daniel said simply, "and people don't walk into Blackwell Tower unless they want something." Her breath caught. He wasn't wrong. Ethan's face flashed in her mind, pale, hooked up to monitors, waiting for a sister who always seemed a step too late. She hated that Daniel was right, hated that he could see through her like glass. She stood, clutching the garment bag tighter. "You don't know me." "No," he said softly, "but I will." The words chilled her. She should leave. She should run. Instead, she found herself frozen, caught in that gray gaze like a moth in a beam of light. Daniel leaned back again, dismissing her with a flick of his hand. "Think about it. 6 p.m. tomorrow, same floor. If you don't show, I'll know your answer." Emily hesitated at the doorway. "Why do I feel like this is more than an initiative?" Daniel's lips curved just slightly. "Because you're not as naive as you look." Her heart pounded all the way down the hallway, into the elevator, onto the street where the city roared with life. The envelope was still tucked in her bag, heavy as stone. She should walk away, she knew, But as she disappeared into the subway crowd, one truth pressed into her bones. For the first time in years, someone had looked at her and seen more than a waitress. And that terrified her more than anything. The next evening, Manhattan gleamed like it had been polished by hand. Black cars idled curbside outside the Whitman Museum, their engines purring, chauffeurs in crisp caps opening doors for women lacquered in diamonds and men packaged in flawless tuxedos. A banner arched above the limestone steps. BLACKWELL Foundation Gala, HERTS for Hope. Emily checked her reflection in a narrow service mirror backstage. The dress Ava had sent was tasteful and simple, midnight blue cap sleeves neat with pockets, blessed pockets. Her hair was gathered in a soft twist, a few strands left free on purpose. She looked like a quieter version of herself, like the volume had been turned down but the clarity dialed up. Over appeared beside her a precise shadow. Remember your brief, coordinate the donor table placements, cue the video at 8:30, and keep Mr. Blackwell's path clear between speeches. She adjusted a tiny earpiece beside Emily's ear. I'll be in your channel. If anyone challenges you, use my name. Emily nodded. And if I break a priceless statue? Smile and redirect. Ava's gaze sharpened. You've got this. Out in the main hall, a string quartet tugged at a Vivaldi line while guests flowed like mercury through the galleries, champagne flutes catching light. The museum smelled faintly of beeswax and old money. Emily stepped into the current and began to work. Miss Penmore, your name card is at table 4, center left. Yes, we can accommodate the vegan option. Mr. Hale, welcome. Your guest is already seated. Excuse me, ma'am, the coat check is just down that corridor. Her voice found a steady rhythm. Her hands knew where to point before her brain finished the thought. A woman in emerald silk glanced at Emily's earpiece and softened her posture, the way civilians react to a badge. That surprised her. Power wasn't just having access, it was being mistaken for someone who belonged. At 7:20, the room shifted. Conversations thinned, heads turned. Daniel Blackwell entered without introduction, a gravity well in a black tux. He didn't smile, but he acknowledged people with a nod that felt like currency. He moved with the ease of a man whose decisions had consequences on distant continents. His eyes found Emily. A flicker there and gone, he changed direction and approached. Up close, he was all clean lines and cool presence, the hint of something restless under the calm. Status, he said quietly. Place cards are set, donor video queued, keynote at 8:45. Media is contained near the sculpture wing. Emily met his gaze, heartbeat a steady drum, and your route is clear. Good, he paused long enough to make her wonder if she'd missed something. You clean up well. She swallowed, so does the museum. Ava's voice crackled in her ear. 10 minutes to doors, Victoria Hayes is inbound with press. The name traveled down Emily's spine like cold water. It took 3 minutes for Victoria to arrive and 30 seconds for the room to realign around her. She wore white satin like a blade. Photographers stuttered flashes as she posed at the step and repeat, left shoulder forward, chin tipped in royal defiance. When she spotted Daniel, her smile widened and sharpened. Darling, she glided over, controlled, the air around her glittering with the static of attention. You look adequate. Victoria, Daniel said, a neutrality that could freeze a lake. Her gaze drifted, found Emily. Bright recognition flared into disdain. Oh, she purred, it's the barista. Event staff, Emily said evenly. Can I help you to your table, Miss Hayes? Victoria's eyes swept Emily's dress, then her face, as if price tags floated there. Table 1, obviously. She turned back to Daniel, voice sugar-laced with arsenic. I'm hosting Crossley Farmer at our table. They're eager to discuss your foundation's partnership on pediatric trials. Assuming your events team can pass a tray without scalding anyone. Emily kept her mouth closed, chin level. The quartet's cello swelled, as if the room itself swallowed a grimace. Daniel didn't take the bait. Enjoy the evening. Victoria's smile thinned. I always do. She floated away, leaving I always do. She floated away, leaving perfume and frost in her wake. Emily exhaled slowly, counting to 4 the way the nurse had taught Ethan on anxious nights. Ava's voice whispered in her ear, ignore her, table checks in 2. Dinner service began like choreographed weather, clouds of waiters descending, silver lids lifting, conversation rising and falling. Emily slipped between tables, trading minor fires for small victories. A donor unhappy with his angle on the stage, a place card missing a hyphen, a mic battery replaced without anyone noticing. At table 1, Victoria held court. Crossley executives laughed too loudly and touched their cufflinks too often. Emily approached to confirm and tray changes. Ma'am, we have 2 pescatarian. Victoria lifted a hand without looking. We have a system, sweetheart. When adults are speaking, coffee girls stand by. A murmur just loud enough to carry. Emily felt the sting but kept her voice steady. I'll make sure the kitchen has everything you need. A man at the table, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes, studied Emily. Your Blackwells knew what is the word, experiment. Event staff, Emily repeated, enjoy your evening. She pivoted before the flush reached her cheeks. Ava's voice again, you handled that, proud of you. 2 words mattered more than Emily wanted to admit. At 8:30, the house lights dipped. The donor video washed across the hall, kids laughing in hospital rooms, nurses dancing behind rolling IV poles, parents trying to smile through fear. Emily watched from the wings, throat tight, Ethan's face superimposed on every kid in the frame. The voiceover promised access, dignity, science with the heart. When the lights came up, Daniel stepped to the podium. No teleprompter, no notes. He spoke like a man who rarely asked for anything and had decided to ask once. We are not here to applaud wealth, he said. We are here to measure it by what it can repair. The room lined in, even the clink of ice in glasses stopped. We fund trials others won't. We invest where the spreadsheet says inefficient and the soul says necessary. Tonight, we expand our pediatric cardiac program. We do it because children aren't line items. Emily swallowed hard. Her earpiece seemed to fade. The world narrowed to the cadence of his voice and the cool glass of the display case under her fingertips. A phone lit on table 1. Victoria glanced at it, smiled without humor, and stood. She glided toward the back, toward the press corridor, heels whispering threat. Ava's voice sharpened. Emily, shadow her. Don't engage. Just be present. Emily moved, weaving behind the columns, keeping Victoria in sight as the heiress slipped through a velvet rope to a small press alcove. 2 bloggers perked up like terriers. Victoria didn't even lower her voice. It's charming, isn't it? The coffee girl as event planner. Blackwell does adore a charity case. 1 spill and she found her way upstairs. Cameras angled. 1 blogger smirked. So the rumor's true. He's what, slumming it for redemption arc. Victoria let a laugh twinkle. I would never say that, but I worry for his judgment. She leaned closer, conspiratorial. Background, of course. A vein of heat opened in Emily's chest. She took 1 step into the alcove. Miss Hayes, media questions go through the communications desk. Happy to escort you there. Victoria turned slowly, delighted. There you are. She took Emily's wrist, not hard but proprietary, and pivoted her toward the bloggers. Gentlemen, meet the evening's protagonist. Tell them how you came to our tower, dear. Oh, Emily eased her wrist back, steady. This corridor is for accredited press only. Victoria's eyes glittered. And you're what, security? She glanced at the bloggers. She's adorable. The dress is off the rack, but ambition is couture. The bloggers exchanged a look, smelling blood. Emily chose her words like stepping stones over a river. Enjoy the gala, Miss Hayes, she nodded to the bloggers. If you need a quote, the comms team can help. They're 2 doors down, left. She pivoted, heart hammering, and walked away without hurry. Power was sometimes refusing to give a scene oxygen. Ava's voice threaded into her ear, low and warm, perfectly executed. Back in the hall, applause crested as Daniel finished. Guests rose in a Back in the hall, applause crested as Daniel finished. Guests rose in a standing ovation that felt less performative than usual. Pledge cards appeared like a synchronized trick. Numbers whispered to numbers. Somewhere a child's surgery moved from maybe to yes. Emily drifted to the edge of the crowd, catching her breath. Daniel stepped away from the stage and cut a path that intersected hers with suspicious precision. How bad? He asked. She blinked. Your speech, not bad at all. Victoria. Emily considered. She performed. Daddio. I didn't clap. One corner of his mouth tipped. Good. He scanned her face. You all right? I'm fine, she said, and surprised herself by meaning it. Stay near the dais for the auction, he said. If anyone tries to reroute me, reroute them back. Before she could answer, Victoria materialized, smile incandescent, cameras reappearing like summoned birds. Daniel, she sang, sliding between them, a word. His expression didn't change, make it quick. She lowered her voice just enough to pretend she wasn't performing. Crossley wants assurances. They don't like distractions. Daniel held her gaze. Then they lack imagination. Her smile flickered. Be careful who you elevate. Some people belong in the service corridor. Emily felt the words like a small, practiced knife. She let them pass through. Daniel's response was quiet enough that only the three of them could hear. What belongs where is not your decision. Something cold settled in Victoria's eyes. No more glitter, just calculation. Of course, she said brightly, stepping back. For now. She glided away, but the temperature of the room had changed. Emily could feel it, a front moving in, pressure dropping, the hint of storm. Ava came over quick and contained. Heads up, Crossley's comms lead just fed a line to a finance blog. Blackwell blurs lines between philanthropy and personal affairs. She looked from Daniel to Emily. We'll handle it, but this will get loud. Daniel's jaw set, the line of it cut from something harder than bone. He didn't look at Emily when he said, let it. Then he did look at her finally, and there was a decision in his eyes. Stay close, he said. It's going to be a long night. Oh, Emily nodded, feeling the room tilt, the ground shift a fraction under her heels. For the first time since the coffee spill, she wasn't terrified of being seen. She was terrified of what would come from it. The gala dragged into late evening, all velvet shadows and champagne laughter. The kind of event where power wasn't spoken aloud but whispered in nods, handshakes, and the weight of a checkbook. Emily stayed near the dais, tracking Daniel's movements like Ava had instructed, her earpiece buzzing with quiet commands. It felt surreal. Just 2 nights ago, she'd been wiping cappuccino foam off marble floors, praying she wouldn't be fired. Now she was standing in heels she didn't own, dressed in a gown she could never afford, shadowing one of the most powerful men in New York. But even in the glitter, real life intruded. Her phone buzzed in her clutch, a text from Ethan's nurse. "Ethan's stable tonight. He keeps asking when you'll be home." Emily's chest tightened. She typed back quickly under the table, "Tell him soon. Love you." She tucked the phone away before her mask cracked. Across the hall, she caught sight of Daniel shaking hands with a senator, his expression polite but impassive. Then something shifted. His gaze moved beyond the donor cluster to the far corner, where a janitor struggled with a toppled tray of crystal glasses. It was a small accident, barely noticeable in the noise. But the young man, maybe 18, maybe 19, looked mortified, scrambling on hands and knees as shards scattered across the marble. Guests turned away, noses wrinkling at the interruption. One woman muttered, "Someone should remove him." Emily didn't think. She moved. "Careful," she said softly, kneeling beside the janitor, steadying the tray. "You'll cut your hands." She grabbed a linen napkin from a side table, wrapping it around her palm to pick up the largest shards. Her voice stayed calm, steady, protective. The boy looked up, face flushed. "I am sorry, miss." "You're fine," Emily said firmly. "It happens to everyone. Let's clean it fast." They worked together, quiet, efficient. Within a minute the shards were gathered, the marble spotless again. Emily squeezed the boy's shoulder gently. "Take 5, breathe, then get back out there. You're good at this." His eyes shone with relief, and he nodded before slipping away. Emily rose, brushing her dress. Only then did she realize the room had stilled, not silent but away. Eyes had followed, not the guests, Daniel. He stood at the edge of the domer cluster, gaze fixed on her. Not cold, not curious, something softer, something searching. Emily's throat tightened. She turned, retreating to the dais, heat crawling up her neck. Ava's voice came into her ear, low and deliberate. That was exactly right for him to see. Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" Later, Ava said, "Stay sharp." "What?" The auction began, paddles lifting for art pieces, vintage wine, naming rights for hospital wings. Emily moved quietly among tables, collecting pledges. When she passed table 1, Victoria extended a manicured hand, blocking her path. "Sweetheart," Victoria drawled, her voice carrying just enough for surrounding donors to hear. "You're very brave, saving the janitor. What a heroine." Emily kept her face still, "Just doing my job." Victoria's eyes gleamed. "You keep saying that, but jobs end, moments fade, and the only thing people remember," she leaned closer, voice like silk over glass, "is who doesn't belong." Emily inhaled slowly, forcing her pulse to steady. "Enjoy your evening, Miss Hayes." She pivoted, walked on, ignoring the ripple of smirks at the table. Behind her, Victoria's laugh tinkled, brittle as crystal. At 10 o'clock, the gala drew to a close. Donors drifted out, coats draped over arms, chauffeurs whisking them into the night. Emily helped direct traffic, collecting programs and extinguishing candles. By the time the last guests left, her feet throbbed and her shoulders ached, but the hall gleamed again, like nothing had ever happened. Daniel approached, his tux jacket over his arm, tie loosened. The exhaustion in his posture made him look less like an icon and more like a man. "You handled yourself," he said simply. Emily shrugged. "I cleaned up a mess, not exactly a headline." "Most people don't kneel on marble in front of 300 millionaires." His gaze was steady. Most people pretend they don't see. Her throat tightened. I couldn't just stand there. That's the point, Daniel said, his voice softened, rare and disarming. You didn't stand there. Emily searched his face, trying to understand why he was telling her this, why it mattered, why she mattered. But before she could speak, Ava joined him, tablet in hand. We pulled in 12 million tonight. Crossley is trying to spin, but donors are leaning into your narrative. We'll need a debrief tomorrow. Daniel nodded, his eyes still on Emily. Good work, both of you. Just slightly, but she said nothing. As they left the museum, the city air hit sharp and cool. Daniel's car idled at the curb. He held the door open for Emily without a word. She hesitated. I can take the subway. Not tonight, Daniel said. You've done enough. Her pulse stuttered. Against her better judgment, she slid into the leather seat. The city lights streamed by, neon and shadow, painting a reflection on the tinted glass. Daniel sat beside her, silent, unreadable. Finally he spoke, low enough that only she could hear. You saw someone who was invisible. That's rare. Emily looked at him, heart pounding, unsure how to answer. But deep inside she knew tonight had shifted something. Not just for him, for her. And that terrified her more than anything. Hospitals smell like lemon cleaner and unslept nights. Emily stepped out of the rideshare into the blue-gray dawn, clutching a paper cup that had once been coffee and was now a ritual. St. Luke's main entrance yawned open, swallowing her into a quiet lobby where morning hadn't learned to be loud yet. Nora met her by the elevator, scrubs, sneakers, hair in a messy bun that said more about triage than trends. You look wiped. I'm fine, Emily lied. They rode in silence to the 6th floor. Machines chirped inside behind half-closed curtains. Nurses moved like tired angels. Nora led Emily to room 612. Ethan slept on his side, the blanket tucked under his chin, the monitor drawing a green line across a small, stubborn life. A cartoon sticker clung to the ivy pole, something a volunteer had stuck there months ago, and no one had the heart to peel off. He's stable, Nora murmured. Vitals were bouncy at 2 a.m., but he's settled. Thank God. Emily set the cup down, pulled the chair close, brushed Ethan's hair off his forehead. He made a small sound and sank deeper into sleep. Nora hesitated. I pulled something for you. She slid a manila folder from under her chart, lips pressing thin. I shouldn't, but your drowning in will get back to you. Read, don't photograph, put it back before I get fired. Emily's heart kicked. What is it? Payer review notes, trial criteria, denial language from 3 months ago, Nora said, for the cross-cardia pediatric valve trial, the one Ethan should have qualified for. Emily pulled the chair toward the little window with the long sill and opened the folder. The top page had a header, Crossley Pharmaceuticals Cross-Cardia Pediatric Protocol 17B below, dense text and checkboxes, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, vendor notes. Her finger traced lines she didn't understand until one sentence grabbed her throat. Exclusion, patients with comorbid social risk factors that may impact adherence or PR optics for phase III media strategy. Her pulse thumped in her ears. PR optics. Nora's mouth twisted. They say it without saying it. High-profile trial means high-profile storytelling. They choose kids whose parents can smile on camera. Emily flipped to the next page, a denial checklist with coded remarks. Under reason for deferral, a line stood out. Deferred per HBF guidance, limited prestige alignment. What's HBF? Emily asked. Nora glanced down the hall, lowered her voice. Hayes Biomedical Fund. Victoria's Family Foundation co-funds a chunk of Crossley's pediatric research. They advise on allocation. That word guidance means veto. Emily's chest went hollow. They can veto a child. They'll tell you it's an optimization model, Nora said softly. They'll tell you the dollars go farther when the story does. Emily's hands shook. She turned another page. A red-stamped email thread, half black with redactions. Still, a few names glared between the blackout bars. To comms at Crossville Pharma, com, CCV Hayes at HBF.org. Subject, Cross-Cardia Pediatric Slot Allocation, and Y region. A bulleted line survived the censor. Avoid high liability families, arrears, eviction notices, unstable employment, media risk high. Her vision tunneled, rent late. She added, last grace day. She heard the landlord's text like a fresh bruise. Emily, Nora's voice was a hand on her shoulder. Breathe. This isn't a spreadsheet, Emily said, voice shaking. This is my brother. I know. Emily closed the folder, forcing the paper to lie flat, to behave, to be normal when nothing was. Can I keep this? You didn't see it, Nora said. You'll put it back on my desk in 20 minutes. Emily nodded. She stared at Ethan for a long moment. His eyelids fluttered. He whispered something in sleep, maybe nothing, maybe her name. She pressed her lips to his knuckles and tasted antiseptic and hope. Her phone buzzed, unnumbered. She stepped into the hallway and answered, hello. Miss Carter, the voice was crisp, cool. Ava, do you have a minute to check your email? I'm at the hospital. I know, Ava said, which is why I'm sending you something now. Use your eyes, not your phone memory. Understood. The line clicked. Emily opened her inbox. From Evelyn. Subject, due diligence, Crossley/HBF confidential. Her thumb hovered, then tapped. A PDF bloomed. Blackwell Group had done its homework. A timeline, footnotes, internal memos. A slide labeled stakeholder interference, pediatric cardiac. Under it, bullet points that felt like stepping on glass. Email VHays to Crossley Comms 211-8:12 a.m. We need wins. Avoid cases that read lost causes. Align selection with Gala calendar. Memo HBF advisory call 219. Filter out families with arrears, unstable housing, reputational drag. Note NY region St. Luke's requests flagged. Recommendation, defer until after Q3 media rollout. Emily's breath hitched. She kept scrolling. A table cross-referenced St. Luke's case IDs with responses. There, Ethan's anonymized ID, deferred per HBF guidance. At the bottom of a thread, a name appeared like a blade catching light. Victoria Hayes. The signature block was unambiguous. Emily's throat closed. Ava, why are you sending me this? Ava took a beat. Because you deserve informed consent about your own life. Another beat. And because you will do the right thing with it. What does that mean? It means you will not run to the press in a fury, Ava said. You will bring it to Daniel. He's meeting Crossley's board at noon. He needs leverage. He needs a story that isn't spin. Emily stared at the page until the words blurred. My brother was a reputational drag. Ava's voice softened, almost human. I know. Did Daniel know? He knew enough to suspect, Ava said. Now he can prove. Emily closed her eyes, a rage so clean it felt like oxygen moved through her. Send me the agenda for noon. I'm coming. That's not wise. Neither is letting them do this, Emily said. Send it. Silence, then 12 sharp. Boardroom C West Wing. Use the service elevator. The call ended. Emily leaned her forehead against the cool hallway glass. On the other side, the city tugged its morning on like a suit. She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, squared her shoulders, and returned the folder to Nora's chart. Nora searched her face. What did you find? Enough, Emily said. Too much. Nora touched her arm. If you knight me. I will, Emily said. Thank you. By 11:30, Emily entered Blackwell Tower, bag over her arm like armor. Security recognized her now. The elevator hummed to 49. The corridor opened beneath her feet. Ava waited by the glass, unreadable in navy. You're early. Oh, I had to see him. Ava led her into a smaller conference room. A bank of windows, a table like a runway, chairs that made you sit up straight. Daniel stood with his back to the skyline, sleeves rolled. His eyes cut to Emma the moment she entered, and something in his face shifted. Less steel, more storm. What happened? He asked. Emily slid the phone across the table, the PDF open to the worst line. They called my brother a reputational drag. Daniel's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking once. He didn't look at Ava. He didn't look out the window. He looked at Emily and saw the part of her that was all wire and flame. Sit, he said softly. Tell me everything. She did, the lemon cleaner, the folder, the reductions, the names that bled through anyway. Victoria's signature like a nail in a tire. When she finished, the room felt colder. Daniel tapped the PDF. This is ours. I know, Emily said. Am I breaking some law by reading it? Probably, he said, but some laws deserve pressure. Abba set a thin folder on the table, printed, tabbed. We prepared for pushback. We didn't prepare for this level of interference tied to a single signatory. Victoria, Emily said. Victoria, Daniel confirmed. He met Emily's gaze. I can use this to force immediate review. I can blow up the partnership, but if I do, the kids in the pipeline may pay for it in the short term. Then don't blow it up, Emily said, voice steady. Fix it from the inside, right now. Make them take Ethan. Make them change the criteria so no one's a PR pawn again. Daniel studied her for a long, measured second. You don't want revenge. I want my brother to breathe, Emily said, and I want the next kid to never see the words reputational drag. The line of his mouth eased just barely. Then we align. Ava glanced at the wall clock. They're waiting. Daniel nodded once. Emily, you don't have to be in that room. I think I do, she said, not as your charity case. As someone who read their words and refused to disappear. A shadow of a smile flickered, gone too fast to be called a smile at all. Then let's change their minds. The boardroom door swung open. Voices drifted and measured, moneyed, certain. Emily smoothed the front of her blouse, felt the tremor in her hands, let it be there. She had spent her whole life trying not to be seen. She walked into the room to be seen on purpose. The boardroom was colder than the marble lobby below, though the thermostat said 72. A table stretched like a runway beneath a chandelier of frosted glass. The men and women seated around it were dressed in power, not fabric navy suits, silk ties, pearls that spoke louder than words, Crossley's executives, investors, lawyers. The head Daniel Blackwell, sleeves rolled, jaw set. Emily slipped in behind him, pulse roaring in her ears. She was supposed to be invisible, but Ava pulled out a chair at the far end and gave her a nod that meant stay. The chairman of Crossley cleared his throat. Daniel, let's begin. We're aligned on the expansion plan for CrossCardia, pending advisory input from Hayes Biomedical Fund. That name Hayes cracked through Emily like glass under a boot. She glanced down the table. Victoria was there, not in satin tonight, but in a tapered suit the color of wet stone. Her hair was smooth, her lipstick cruel. She didn't look at Emily. She didn't have to. The air between them hummed with unspoken venom. Daniel leaned forward. Before we discuss expansion, we need to address interference. Specifically, advisory vetoes that remove children from eligibility based on optics, not science. A ripple passed through the room. Lawyers shifted. Executives exchanged glances. Victoria's smile was sugar. Daniel, you know as well as I do that optics matter. Trials live and die on public trust. We can't risk headlines that undermine decades of work. Emily couldn't stop herself. You mean children like my brother? Heads turned, the room tilted. For a moment no one spoke. Victoria's eyes slid to Emily, glittering with recognition. Ah, the coffee girl. Her laugh was soft, dismissive. How quaint. Daniel's voice cut through. She has the floor. Emily's knees trembled, but her voice didn't shake. My brother was denied a trial slot. The paperwork called him a reputational drag because we're behind on rent, because I serve coffee instead of wearing diamonds, because someone decided poor kids don't make good posters. The room buzzed like a hive struck by a stick. The chairman frowned. That's an internal classification. Then why is her signature on the denial? Daniel slid a printed page across the table. Victoria's name gleamed at the bottom, black ink against white truth. Victoria's composure cracked just slightly. Advisory is not veto. We recommend, we don't decide. Daniel's hand slammed flat against the table. Don't play word games, you interfered. You cost children chances at survival. Children who would tank the program, Victoria snapped, her mask slipping. Do you think donors open their wallets for sob stories with eviction notices? They want hope, pretty hope, marketable hope. The words echoed obscene in the sterile room. Emily's breath hitched. The executives shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. Daniel stood, voice low but sharp as a blade. Hope isn't a product, and children aren't branding tools. Victoria rose too, eyes flashing. This is about more than children. This is about you, Daniel, you and your sudden fascination with strays. She flicked her gaze to Emily. How convenient, one spill, and you've turned a waitress into a saint. Emily's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. I don't need to be a saint. I just need my brother to live. For the first time, her voice was louder than Victoria's. The chairman rapped his knuckles against the table. Enough. This boardroom is not a tabloid circus. He looked at Daniel. We'll review the documents. If interference occurred, adjustments will be made. That's not enough, Daniel said. The criteria must be rewritten, effective immediately. No more social filters, no more PR vetoes. Every child is eligible by medicine, not money. Victoria laughed, brittle. You'll lose donors, you'll lose everything. Daniel's gaze never wavered. Then I'll lose them, but I won't lose myself. The room was silent, heavy. Finally, the chairman nodded. We'll put it to vote. Papers shuffled, hands rose. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. The criteria would change. Ethan would be eligible. So would dozens of children like him. Emily felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them back. Victoria, however, was pale beneath her makeup. Her hand clenched the edge of the table, nails digging into wood. She turned on Daniel, her voice low, venomous. You'll regret this." Daniel met her gaze, calm, cold. "No, Victoria, you will." Oh, the meeting adjourned, chairs scraped, executives filed out. The city skyline waited, golden and endless through the glass. Emily stayed frozen in her chair, hands gripping the edge, until Daniel touched her shoulder lightly. "It's done. He'll get the trial." She swallowed hard. "Because of you." "No," Daniel said, his eyes softened for the first time all day. "Because of you." But as Victoria swept from the room, her heels sharp against marble, Emily knew it wasn't over. The war had only just begun. By morning, the victory felt like a rumor. Headlines crawled across financial tickers in the lobby of Blackwell Tower. Blackwell challenges CROSOY trial policy. The market didn't like moral stands. Blackwell Group's stock slid 3% by noon, 5 by close. Phones rang, lawyers hovered. The building's air seemed thinner, like someone had turned down the oxygen. Ava intercepted Daniel outside the elevator, tablet in her arm like a seamed. "Board call at 9. Emergency session at 1. 2 hedge funds requested clarity on your personal involvement. And Crossley wants a coordinated statement that excludes any mention of advisory interference." Daniel's mouth was a hard line. "We won the vote." "They're not mad about the vote," Ava said. "They're mad you did it with a waitress standing in the room." He glanced at her. "She has a name." "Emily Ova said, I am aware." She hesitated. "So is everyone else." On the 49th floor, his executive team waited like a jury. Slides glowed on a wall. Words like exposure, sentiment, downside risk marched in bullet points. The CFO spoke in a tone meant to be calm and sounded like a countdown. "Investors need assurance," he said. "You picked a fight with our largest research partner and did it in a way that looks personal." Daniel didn't sit. "It is personal, that's the point." "You can't make it the point," the general counsel said. "Not as CEO." He stared through the glass at a city that had bent for him for a decade and suddenly refused to tilt. "Then they can fire me." Silence pulled like taffy, the COO first to blink. "No one's firing you. They're asking for optics management, distance, separation." "Say her name," Daniel said. The COO swallowed. "Emily." Ava's voice cut through, level. "The board's language will be softer, but yes, they want you to create daylight." Daniel nodded once. No did. He dismissed the room. When the door shut, the quiet pressed. Ava shifted, then lowered her voice. "The right thing has a cost." "So does the other thing," he said. "And this isn't just about you," she said gently. "It's about her brother. If you become the story, he becomes collateral." He closed his eyes for a beat. When he opened them, his voice was settled. "Schedule a call with Crossley's COO. We lock Ethan's slot today, then we manage the noise." "Already did," Ava said. "They've greenlit pre-op, sent." "Lokes is waiting on your foundation's guarantee." He nodded, the smallest crack of relief. "Good." Ava hesitated. "There's more. Victoria's PR firm is active. Finance blogs are hinting at undue influence. A burner account is seeding a clip of you leaving the gala with Emily." Daniel's jaw tightened. "It was my car." "I know," Ava said. "They don't care." She paused. "Do you want me to move her out of the line of fire?" His answer was immediate. "No." "Then brace," Ava said. "It gets uglier from here." "What?" At St. Luke's, uglier had a different flavor. The cardiac ward moved on a schedule that didn't care about markets. Still, paperwork could slow a miracle. Emily sat at the nurse's station, signing forms until her hand cramped, feeling the minutes slipping like sand. Nora slid a plastic bracelet across the counter. Pre-op at 3. If we clear the deposit and get cardiology's final sign-off, anesthesia rolls at 4. Deposit? Emily asked, fear prickling. I thought the foundation. It's processed, Nora said, but the hospital system needs the authorization code, billing us on a lunch skeleton crew. She offered a tight smile. We're dialing repeatedly. Emily looked through the glass into Ethan's room. He was awake, propped up, trying to watch a game on mute. His smile, thin as gauze, lit when he saw her. She went in, kept it bright. Hey, soldier. He grinned. You look like you haven't slept. That's my brand. Am I really getting it? He asked, voice fragile with hope. The new valve. Yeah, she said, and this time it wasn't a lie. You're on the list. He nodded, eyes shimmering, cool. She held his hand, the knuckles sharp as truth. The monitor ticked their shared silence. When she stepped back into the hall, her phone buzzed. Ava Lynn. Tell me you have the code, Emily said. Sending it to billing now, Ava replied. The hospital will see it in 5. Also, the press. Daniel will keep them off the floor. I don't care about press. I know, Ava said, but they care about you, and Victoria feeds when people are hungry. Emily gripped the phone. She should be worried about her son. Souls don't trend, Ava said. Listen, one more thing. The Blackwell board is pushing Daniel to distance himself. If he seems colder, it's strategy, not sentiment. Emily leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Got it. Hold the line, Ava said softly. I'm with you. The call ended. Emily exhaled, checked the clock. 2:41, she tapped the counter. Nora. Already on it, Nora said, phone to her ear. Billing S rebooting their system, swear to God. At 2:50, a red bar flashed over Ethan's monitor. Brief arrhythmia, then rhythm. A nurse adjusted a drip. Emily felt the floor tilt. At 2:57, the authorization code hit the system. A printer chirped in billing. The nurse manager gave a small, victorious nod. We're green. What? Emily sagged against the counter, a laugh breaking loose that sounded like a sob in disguise. She ran back to Ethan's room, grabbed his hand. You're up, kid. He swallowed. I'm scared. I am too, she said, forehead to his. But we're here, that's everything. They wheeled him out at 3:06. She walked beside the bed until the yellow line on the floor stopped her. I'll see you after, she said. You better, he said, forcing a grin. I owe you a milkshake. Make it 2, she whispered. The doors swung closed. The quiet left behind was brutal. Emily sank into a plastic chair. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown. She almost let it die, then answered. Hello. Miss Carter, this is Deborah Hale with the Blackwell board, a crisp voice said. I'm calling as a courtesy. Emily sat up. A courtesy for what? For your sake, Hale said, words clipped. There will be a statement urging Mr. Blackwell to refrain from personal involvement with beneficiaries of his foundation. It is not a moral judgment. It is governance. You should not be in the building. You should not be in any photos for your own protection. Emily's fingers dug into the armrest. My brother is in surgery. I'm aware, Hale said. This is the cost of leadership. Emily's anger came out smooth. No, this is the cost of cowardice. A pause. Good afternoon, Miss Carter. The line went dead. Emily stared at the ceiling tiles until they blurred. Footsteps approached. Daniel. He stood in the doorway in a dark suit, tie knotted like a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. He looked at her, then at the OR doors, then back. Something in his face resolved and something softer threaded through, cracked the hard shell she'd built for days. "Deposit cleared," he said. "Anesthesia is ready. They'll pay just when he's out." "Thank you," she said, and the words felt too small. He sat beside her for a long minute. Neither spoke. The clock's second hand dragged. Somewhere down the hall, a vending machine coughed out a soda. Finally, he said, "The board is issuing a statement." "I heard. I won't sign it." "You don't have to say that to make me feel better," she said quietly. "I know what this costs." He turned, met her eyes. "You didn't ask me to do anything. I chose." "And they will punish you," she said. She stared at his hands, steady on his knees, the left knuckle nipped where he'd slammed the boardroom table. She wanted to take that hand. She didn't. Her phone vibrated again, unknown number, then a flood of notifications. Headlines, clips, a blurred video from the gala, Daniel opening the car door, Emily sliding in the frame too tight, the angle suggestive. A caption, "Billionaire's new muse," another clip cut to Victoria's smile at a microphone. "I hope he's not being manipulated by heartstrings." Emily's stomach flipped. "They're dragging you." "They're dragging us," he said. "We can make it easier," she said. "I can disappear." He looked like she'd slapped him. "Don't say that." "If you lose the company." "I'll build another one," he said. "I won't build another conscience." Her throat burned. "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "You're the reason I remember what everything is," he said, voice low. The ore light changed from red to green. A nurse pushed through the doors, eyes tired but kind. "Family of Ethan Carter." Emily shot to her feet. "Yes." "He's in recovery," the nurse said. "There were some complications getting rhythm stable, but the valve is in place. He's stable now. It will be a long night." Emily covered her mouth. The chair scraped as she backed into it, then forward again, laughed, crying, "Thank you, thank you." Daniel exhaled, a sound like a held breath finally released. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The relief between them was a warm front-breaking winter. The nurse continued, "You can see him in 45 minutes, 2 visitors at a time." "Okay," Emily whispered, "okay." Her phone buzzed again, this time Ava. "Do not look at socials. Victoria is about to move." A second later, "She's pushing a doctored audio clip. It sounds bad. We're working on it. Brace." Emily's relief twisted, bracing for a new punch. Daniel's phone lit up too. He scanned the screen, eyes narrowing. "She's escalating." Emily nodded, spine straightening. "Then so do we." They stood side by side under the humming fluorescent light, victory and dread braided together. Somewhere in recovery, a monitor beeped in a steady, stubborn rhythm. Outside, the storm of money, headlines, and knives gathered again. Inside, Emily pressed her palms flat against her thighs, steadying herself for the next blow, and the one after that. Because the cost of love was never paid once. It was paid and paid again. And she wasn't leaving the counter until the bill was honest. Hook, as the doctored clip detonates online in donors recoil, who will betray them next, and who will step forward when it matters most. The video spread like wildfire. It was only 30 seconds, but 30 seconds was enough to set fire to a reputation. Daniel's voice, clipped from a dozen conversations, stitched together into something cruel. She's useful, a pawn, easy to control. The audio was grainy, distorted, but believable enough. The caption did the rest. BLA's KWLL mocks waitress behind closed doors. By morning it was everywhere, finance blogs, gossip columns, even mainstream outlets. Hashtags trended, coffee column, Blackwell scandal. Emily sat in the hospital cafeteria, untouched coffee pouring between her hands, staring at the screen of her phone. Each headline punched harder than the last. Her chest tightened, not just because of Daniel, but because the whispers bled toward her. Her name, her brother's name. Paparazzi had already camped outside Sint. Luke snapping photos of anyone in scrubs who might look like her. Across the table, Nora reached out. You know it's fake, right? You know he didn't say that. Emily nodded, but her stomach churned. It doesn't matter if I know. Everyone else. Before Nora could answer, her phone buzzed. Ava Lynn. Emily answered. Please tell me you have a plan. We're working on a forensic debunk, Ava said, but the internet runs faster than truth. Daniel's investors are panicking. Donors are canceling pledges. Crossley is threatening to walk. Emily's pulse quickened, and Victoria. She's fueling it, whisper campaigns, feeding quotes to anyone who'll print them. She's not hiding anymore. Then neither should we, Emily said. Iva paused. I'm not sure you understand. I understand perfectly, Emily snapped. She tried to kill my brother's chance at life. Now she's trying to destroy Daniel S. We can't keep hiding. Ava exhaled. Meet me at the tower, 1 hour. Bring nothing you don't want liked. Emily hung up, drank the cold coffee, and stood. Nora grabbed her wrist. Emily, think about this. If you step out there, you can't go back to invisible. Emily's jaw tightened. I was invisible for 24 years. Look where it got me. The 49th floor was buzzing like a beehive on fire. Assistants darted with folders, analysts hunched over laptops, phones screamed unanswered. The stock price bled red on every screen. Daniel stood in the center of it all, unflinching. The storm seemed to break around him, but Emily could see the tension in his jaw, the weight in his shoulders. When she walked in, the room stilled just slightly. Emily, his voice was softer than she expected. You shouldn't be here. I think I should, she said. He looked at her for a long beat, then gestured toward his office. Inside, the glass muffled chaos but didn't silence it. They believe it, Emily whispered. For now, Daniel said. Then fight it. I am, he said, steel in his voice, but lies are nimble, truth limps. She stepped closer, then give them a truth that runs. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Show them who you are, she said, not in numbers, not in stock tickers. Show them what I saw last night. The man who told a boardroom full of sharks that kids aren't branding tools. The man who, her voice cracked, who made sure my brother lived. Daniel's gaze softened just for a flicker, then he nodded once. Press conference, live, no edits, no spin. Ava slipped inside, tablet in hand. It's risky if he falters. He won't, Emily said. Ava studied her, then Daniel. Fine, but if we're going live, we need an ally. Someone who can verify the clip is fake on record, someone credible. Daniel's jaw worked. Who? Before Ava could answer, the office door opened. Jack, the cafe manager, rumpled blazer, nervous eyes, but resolve under the nerves. Emily blinked. Jack, what are you doing here? I saw the clip, Jack said, voice rough. I know it's fake, and I know who gave Victoria access to your cafe security system to steal Daniel's voice files. He swallowed. It was me. She paid me, but I can fix it. Emily's breath caught. Jack. I was desperate, he said, shame in his eyes. The cafe was sinking. She offered cash, and I'm sorry, but I can testify. I can tell the world it was doctored. Daniel's eyes were ice. Why should I believe you now? Jack looked at Emily, because she believed in me when nobody else did. She saved me from being fired a dozen times. I owe her. Emily searched his face. He was telling the truth, or a broken, guilty version of it. Ova tapped her tablet. If we can corroborate his statement with the metadata we pulled, it'll stick, but it means putting him in front of cameras too. Daniel's gaze hardened. Then do it. We go live in 2 hours. The press conference was chaos before it began. Cameras lined the hall, reporters jostled, flashes stung. Daniel stepped to the podium, Emily and Jack a few feet behind, Eva flanking them like a general. The first question fired before he even spoke. Mr. Blackwell, did you call Emily Carter a pawn? Is a fabrication, and tonight you'll hear why. He gestured. Jack stepped forward, swallowing hard. Victoria Hayes paid me to access cafe audio feeds. She gave me instructions to isolate Daniel's voice and stitch words together. I took the money. I regret it, and I'm telling the truth now because she doesn't deserve to win. Gasps rippled, flashes fired like lightning. Daniel continued. Victoria Hayes attempted to manipulate a medical trial to exclude children based on their parents' income. She attempted to smear me for refusing to allow it, and she failed. His voice grew sharper, cutting. Children are not pawns. Emily Carter is not a pawn. She is the reason a little boy is alive today. And if the cost of doing the right thing is losing the approval of people who believe otherwise, so be it. Reporters shouted, cameras rolled. The story was no longer about a coffee spill or a scandal. It was about a billionaire calling out corruption in the middle of a storm. Behind him, Emily felt her throat tighten. Jack's confession was messy, but it landed. Daniel's words were fire. But as she scanned the crowd, her stomach dropped. In the back of the room, framed by cameras, stood Victoria, smiling, watching. And in her eyes, Emily saw it. This wasn't defeat, not yet. Victoria had another card to play. The press conference ended in chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Security tried to herd the crowd into order. Daniel kept his face composed, a fortress against noise. Emily stayed behind him, her pulse still rattling from Jack's confession. But Victoria didn't leave. She stood at the back of the hall, every inch immaculate, her white suit glowing under the harsh lights. When Daniel stepped off the podium, she slipped through the crowd with a predator's grace, heels clicking sharp against marble. Impressive, she said, her voice smooth as glass. Drag your little waitress on stage, parade your guilt-ridden manager. What a spectacle. Daniel's gaze hardened. You're finished, Victoria. Her laugh was low, dangerous. Finished, darling, I haven't even started. She lifted her phone, screen bright. I still have the board, and I have something he can't afford, time. Every second the markets bleed, every whisper about your judgment, every donor who questions your fascination with her. Her eyes flicked to Emily. Tick, tick, tick. Emily stepped forward before she could think. You tried to erase kids from a trial because they weren't glossy enough for your gala brochures. You paid a manager to fake audio. You've lied to every donor in this city. You don't get to call this fascination, it's survival. Victoria's smile sharpened. Survival is for cockroaches, sweetheart. Power is for me. Daniel's voice was ice. Not anymore. At his signal, Ivor appeared at his side, tablet in hand. We intercepted your messages, Miss Hayes, she said coolly. Encrypted, yes, but sloppy. Payment confirmations to shell accounts, instructions to edit and distribute the clip, and most importantly, emails tying you directly to the trial videos. For the first time, Victoria's mask cracked, her smile faltered. That's inadmissible, you can't. We already did, Ava cut in. The press has copies. By the time you leave this building, so will the Attorney General's office. Gasps rippled through the press pool. Cameras zoomed closer. Victoria's composure snapped. You think you can strip me of everything. My family will bury you. My lawyers will bury you. You're nothing but a man who fell for a barista's sob story. Emily's voice rose, steady and clear. No, he's a man who finally remembered what it means to be human, and that terrifies you. The words landed like a gavel. The crowd stirred, murmurs growing into a wave. Reporters fired questions, their microphones angled at Victoria now, not Daniel. Did you interfere with trial eligibility? Were you involved in falsifying evidence? Will you resign from the Hayes Foundation? Victoria's eyes darted, calculating desperate. For the first time, she looked small. Daniel stepped closer, voice low but cutting enough for every mic to catch. You used children's lives as leverage. You weaponized lies against people who had nothing. This city won't forgive you, and I won't let you hurt them again. Security moved in. Victoria tried to step back, but the crowd closed around her, cameras flashing, questions flying. She lifted her chin, defiant to the last, but her eyes betrayed the panic underneath. Ava whispered to Daniel, it's done. She'd be under investigation within the hour. Daniel exhaled, the weight lifting but leaving behind something raw. He turned to Emily. Are you all right? Emily shook her head, tears hot in her eyes. I don't know, but Ethan's alive, and she can't hurt anyone else. For a beat, they stood together in the chaos, two people who had been ripped apart by a scandal and stitched together by survival. Behind them, Victoria's downfall played out in real time, her empire of cruelty collapsing under the weight of truth. And though the storm was far from over, Emily knew one thing with absolute certainty. The woman who tried to erase her was gone. But Emily was still here. The storm didn't end when the cameras shut off. If anything, it only shifted. For weeks, headlines pulsed with the same names: Blackwell, Hayes, scandal, trial. Victoria's fall was spectacular: indictments, subpoenas, foundations freezing accounts. But the press didn't stop there. They circled Daniel like sharks around a bleeding whale. BLACKWLL Stark plummets 22%. Board calls for BLACKWLLS resignation. Romance or manipulation? Who is Emil Carter? Every time Emily saw her name on a screen, it twisted her stomach. But she couldn't hide, not anymore. At St. Luke's, the air was different, softer, less electric. Ethan sat upright in his bed, a deck of cards in his hands, challenging Nora to a game of war. His cheeks were pink again. His laugh didn't sound like it came from a well of pain. Emily sat by the window, watching sunlight crawl across the sill. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to exhale without fear. Hey, Ethan called, don't zone out on me. You're supposed to be my cheerleader. She smiled. I'm just making sure you don't cheat. Me, he pressed a hand to his chest. Never. Nora chuckled. He already tried to hide a jack up his sleeve. Traitor, Ethan said, laughing, and the sound was the best Emily had ever heard. Her phone buzzed, a text from Daniel, need to talk, roof of St. Luke's now. The roof was windy, the city stretching infinite in every direction. Daniel stood near the edge, jacket unbuttoned, hair ruffled by the gusts. He looked different, not defeated, but lighter, as if the armor he wore for years had cracked and finally fallen. Emily walked up slowly. You look like a man who hasn't slept. Board forced my resignation this morning, he said without ceremony. Her breath caught Daniel. He shrugged, almost casual. They voted majority, effective immediately. He looked out over the skyline. Blackwell Group isn't mine anymore. Emily stepped closer. How can you say that like it doesn't matter? It matters, he admitted, but I spent 10 years thinking the company was me. Turns out it was just a cage I built too well. He turned to her. The part that mattered was doing something that changed lives. That part isn't gone. Emily searched his face. There was pain there, yes, but there was also something new, freedom. What will you do now? She asked softly. He gave a small smile. I don't know, maybe start smaller, smarter. A foundation without shareholders breathing down my neck. A clinic, a trial program. He paused. Maybe something with less marble and more heart. Her throat tightened. I think you'd be good at that. Wind whipped between them. Silence stretched, full but not empty. Finally, Daniel said, Emily, I don't regret what I lost, but I can't. I won't let you feel like you cost me everything. That's what Victoria wanted. That's not the truth. Her voice wavered. You lost your company because of me. He shook his head. I lost my company because I remembered what mattered more than money. That's not on you. That's on me. She blinked away, sudden tears. So what now? Daniel stepped closer, just enough that the space between them hummed. Now I help Ethan recover, and when he's ready, maybe we both build something worth keeping. Emily's heart stuttered. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in a life that wasn't just survival. But before she could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned. It's Alva, he answered. When he hung up, Emily asked, what is it? Victoria cut a deal, he said. She's naming names, dragging donors down with her. It'll buy her leniency, but it means she's not gone. Emily's chest tightened. So this isn't over. No, Daniel said, but neither are we. They stood on the roof, the city roaring beneath them, the future uncertain but open in a way it had never been before. For the first time in a long time, Emily wasn't terrified of what came next. Spring came slowly that year, but when it arrived, New York bloomed in defiance. Cherry blossoms flared along the parkways, cafe chairs spilled onto sidewalks, and the air carried the scent of hot pretzels and thawed hope. Emily walked through the hospital doors with a bouquet of cheap tulips and a heart that felt finally steady. Ethan was waiting near the front desk, no AV pole, no monitors trailing behind him. Just a hoodie, a baseball cap, and the grin of a boy who had survived. Check it out, he said, tugging his zipper down just enough to reveal the small scar on his chest. Battle wound. She hugged him so tight he laughed. Careful, you'll break me again. You'll live, she said, voice thick with tears she didn't bother to hide. Nora appeared, clipboard in hand, pretending not to watch them with damp eyes. He's cleared for outpatient. Cardio follow-up in 6 weeks, no football, no skateboards, and for the love of God, no pizza until I say so. Cruel, Ethan muttered, but his eyes sparkled. Emily squeezed Nora's hand. Thank you for everything. Nora smiled. Just keep him out of my ward for a while, okay? They stepped outside into sunlight, the city noisy and alive around them. A black car waited at the curb. Daniel leaned against it, no suit, no tie, just jeans, rolled sleeves, and a man who no longer carried a company on his shoulders. Ready for your victory lap? He asked Ethan. Ethan squinted. Is that code for doctor's orders to walk around the block? Daniel smirked, something like that. The boy climbed in and Emily lingered a second, watching Daniel. You didn't have to come. I wanted to, he said simply. Besides, this isn't about companies anymore. It's about family. Her chest tightened at the word, but she let it in. For the first time in years, the idea didn't terrify her. 2 weeks later, the three of them stood in front of a dusty brick building on the Lower East Side. The old sign read Community Health Center in faded paint. Inside, the hall smelled of fresh plaster and new beginnings. Daniel walked them through. It's small, limited beds, but with the right staff and the right partnerships, it'll run independent of board politics. First clinic in a network, pediatric cardiac focus, named after a kid who once told me he owed his sister a milkshake. Ethan grunned, hey, that's me. Emily's throat closed. You're really doing this? Daniel looked at her. We're really doing this, if you'll help me. She blinked. Help you? You've navigated more systems, more paperwork, more bureaucracy than most professionals. You know what families need because you lived it. Be my partner, not in some glossy foundation, in something real. Her heart stumbled. I don't have a degree. I don't need your degree, he said. I need your fire. The words rooted deep. She glanced at Ethan, who nodded like it was obvious. Say yes, Ethan urged. You already bossed me around. Might as well boss him too. Oh, Emily laughed, the sound light and unforced. Okay, yes. Daniel's smile was quiet, genuine. Then we begin. The opening day came in June. No red carpet, no paparazzi, just kids, parents, nurses, and doctors in scrubs with coffee in hand. A mural covered the entry wall, painted by volunteers, full of color, full of life. Emily stood by the door, greeting families. Welcome, you're in the right place. We'll take care of you. Inside, Ethan handed out juice boxes to kids waiting for checkups. He wore his scar proudly, telling anyone who asked that he was proof you could make it through. Daniel moved through the hall, not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, but as a man who had chosen something harder and better. At the end of the day, when the last child left with the balloon, the three of them sat on the clinic steps. The city glowed golden, the hum of traffic softened by distance. Ethan leaned back against his sister. We did it. Emily kissed the top of his head. We did. Daniel's hand brushed hers, tentative, not assuming, just there. She let it stay. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The city stretched before them, vast and unyielding, but no longer hostile. Emily thought back to the day in the café, the spilled coffee, the mortification, the terror, the chain of moments that followed. She smiled, small and sure. Sometimes disasters weren't endings.